In this inaugural episode, we shall take a look at how far I've come in the hobby so far, describe my experience attending my first club launch, and set some goals for the future. So if this sounds at all interesting, stay tuned while we roll the intro sequence. Right. No, I get it. We're gonna need to capture some more footage before we can do that. Maybe a season 2 idea. You know what I think? My prediction? I don't think anyone is gonna watch this first episode unless we go on to do some actually interesting things in subsequent episodes. And then all the views are gonna be from 6 years from now, and all the comments will be like, who's this baby-faced guy? All right, let's get started. Hello, friends, and welcome to Rocketry Progression. I'll be your host, at least until we can find someone better, which means you'll be watching me as I attempt to progress from toy store cardboard kits up to, well, whatever lies beyond. Now, I've only been building and launching model rockets for about 2 years now. I'm sure I saw some get launched when I was a kid and figured, rightfully, that without a job I couldn't afford cardboard tubes. Then, a few years ago, a roommate of mine assembled a couple of kits from the Estes company, brought me along when he launched them, and I had an absolute blast. I loved watching them take off and fly through the air and deploy their parachutes, and I even enjoyed chasing after the damn things afterwards to recover them. So, thanks, Josh! Then, in the year 2020, I came across what looked like a really good deal at a thrift store for a couple of seemingly unopened kits and a few odds and ends. Amongst them, I noticed the launch controller. That's the little box with the button, you press it and it launches the rocket. Well, unfortunately, when I got home, I found that the body tubes in the model rocket kits had been squashed flat, and the launch controller was missing the little light bulb that shows whether it sees electrical continuity. So, before I could even get started building, I had to research repair techniques. I placed an order for some replacement parts and some building supplies and a couple other Estes kits. And then, during the beginning of the tragic coronavirus pandemic, as myself and the rest of the world were put into a lockdown, I built my first model rocket kits. Now, I enjoyed just building these first few kits so much that I put in another order for some even larger kits and also some model rocket motors. I live in a very dense urban area, but I was able to locate a large set of soccer fields, and I had an absolute blast going there and launching my small fleet. For my viewers outside of the United States, a soccer field is what we call a football pitch. Now, unfortunately, at this point, I had not yet learned the importance of watching the weather, and I also didn't really understand the letter-based rating system on the motors I'd bought, so inevitably, one of my sleeker rockets had a high-thrust motor loaded into it and got launched to an unreasonable height and subsequently drifted away in the wind. I quickly determined that I was not able to use anything larger than a B motor at the soccer fields, and that meant there was simply no way for me to enjoy the larger rocket kits that I had purchased. Over the next 15 months or so, I built tons of A and B motor powered rockets, and sometimes I would go out to the soccer fields like twice a week to launch them there. I was advised to buy a special device that would delay the unfurling of the parachute, but ended up being rather large and expensive, and I was just too nervous to try the larger rockets at the soccer field. So the, E and F powered rockets that I built just sat gathering dust until a few months ago I learned that there was actually a rocketry club that was planning a rocket launching event about halfway across the state that I live in. Now, this gathering would be held at a sod farm. That's a place where they grow super nice fancy grass for use on like athletic play fields and millionaires' lawns and stuff like that. So I was extremely excited to finally be able to make use of these more powerful rockets that I had built. I loaded up the fleet, and I drove for many hours. And when I arrived on the location, I almost immediately found a registration tent. And I ran over and I eagerly paid my, I think, $5 a day for a launch fee. And I kind of looked around, and some other participants were also arriving and setting up their campsites. And I noticed their rockets were quite a bit larger than the rockets that I had brought. And, well, when the launching started, it became apparent that there was a lot more to this hobby than I had realized. Turns out that launch fee didn't even apply to the kind of rockets I had brought, which use black powder motors. The rockets that a lot of these folks had gathered to launch use composite motors, and honestly, I don't really understand the difference between the two, aside from them supposedly being quite a bit more powerful. You see, it turns out all of the rockets that I had been launching were considered low power. And even the largest of the rockets that I built and brought with me were just barely into the medium power range. When the first round of high power rockets got launched, I was blown away by the sounds they made and the speed with which some of these just leapt off the launch pad. Some of them spewed brightly colored flames or showers of sparks, or left behind a dense smoke trail that reached high up into the sky. Luckily, I had thought to pack a pair of binoculars, and by far my favorite part of the event was trying to track these rockets as they flew high up into the sky and did their various stages of separating and deploying the parachutes. I had brought my DSLR camera with its telephoto lens, and I really enjoyed filming as many rocket launches as I could. I also brought the Estes Astro Cam, which has a little camera built into it, and I shot this clip of the morning's safety briefing. Pretty cool, huh? So first I grabbed one of my small, sleek rockets, loaded a Forbidden Sea motor in it, and queued up to launch. I was quite relieved to see that folks of all ages, mind you, were launching the low-power ones alongside the big stuff. Mine launched very high and successfully deployed its parachute, and I watched with a fading joy as it drifted in just the wrong way to completely miss all of the beautiful sod fields and instead come down beyond a line of horizon created by a hilly, brushy area located between two fields. I chased after it, and I spent what felt like an hour scouring what appeared to be the sole patch of rough terrain in an otherwise beautiful sea of grass. And finally, I headed back to the campsite feeling very discouraged. And I watched as a steady stream of rocketeers returned with their successfully recovered rockets as I trepidatiously loaded up my first medium power rocket. I ran the parachute release doohickey through its test sequence, and it seemed to do the thing. So I set it to hold the parachute tight until the rocket would have fallen a relatively low altitude. My second launch was quite a bit more successful than the first. I was able to watch the rocket as it soared high into the air and then popped apart, but then fell very quickly back towards the ground until kind of last minute the parachute opened up and slowed the rocket down, and it was able to drift gently onto the manicured grass. I was elated, so excited, and lo and behold, I turn around after retrieving it, and what do I find sitting on a table next to the launch site but my first rocket? You see, some stranger had apparently also been looking for their rocket, found mine instead, and brought it back. Talk about a roller coaster of emotions. The rest of the event continued in very much the same vein. I would lose a rocket or break a rocket and feel horrible, and then I'd have a successful flight and just be over the moon. All of the rockets that I launched eventually got recovered, and more than just that first one was found by a stranger. I'm very grateful for whomever it was that found my rockets. I barraged my very patient neighbors with questions, and I learned about other launch events that take place in the surrounding states. I learned that there is actually a club in my city. They just hadn't been active during the pandemic times. And I learned about a national organization that manages the certification process for high-powered rockets. I saw folks using computers to aid them in making their original rocket designs. There were vendors on site selling not only kits, but also the large composite motors that would otherwise have required prohibitively expensive hazmat fees to ship. In the evenings, after sunset, folks launched illuminated rockets, which made for some really great photos. After the event ended and I returned home, I found myself struggling for several days to get rockets out of my head. I couldn't focus on work, and whenever I talked to my friends, I'd just yammer on about launching rockets. I've actually had this feeling before a couple times. Not just enamored, not obsessed. I'd fallen in love. Now, this entire show is inspired by my experience at Sod Blaster 4. I came home with a head full of crazy ideas, and I intend to use this channel to document my attempts to achieve those goals. In fact, I think somewhere around here I've got an oversized pad of paper. I'm going to grab it, and we're going to make at least a preliminary list. Yep, here it is. I found it. All right. Whoa, boy, this thing is unwieldy. Okay, oh, wow, geez. Why didn't I use PowerPoint like a normal person? Okay. So, let's set some goals. Now, while I was at the event, I saw all sorts of rockets. I mean, all shapes and sizes, and I was kind of surprised by one type of rocket that I thought just looked super duper cool. It was kind of counterintuitive. Well, I'll explain. Rockets that look like airplanes. I don't understand it, right? Like, sure, airplanes are sleek and fast, but rockets are sleeker and faster, right? Why would you want to make your rocket look like an airplane? I don't know why, but rockets that look like airplanes look super cool to me, and I absolutely have got to build some rockets that look like airplanes. Oh, also, tube and ring-shaped fins. So instead of having a straight fin coming right off the rocket, these rockets would have either tubes on the sides or a ring going all the way around. Actually, I think I have one kit that uses a ring fin, but I saw a whole lot more at Sod Blasters, and I've actually already gone ahead and ordered a couple more kits that use ring fins. I think they're super cool. Oh, also I saw at Sod Blasters and thought were super cool were motor clusters. So I saw a lot of folks launching rockets where instead of having just one motor in it, there would be 2 or 3 or more. I'm not entirely sure what the benefit of having a cluster of motors is, but I gotta try it. Oh, here's an obvious one. There were folks using GPS to track their rockets, and the rocket kept track of its position using GPS and then had some other type of radio communication going back down to the ground, and well, I gotta try it. Also, I gotta try those different propellants that people were using. The colored ones and the sparks and the smoke. Yes, please. Also, this whole CAD thing, modeling their rockets in software, I love it. I got to learn how to use the computer-aided design tools so that I can design or modify my own rockets. I mean, building kits is cool, it's relaxing, it's fun, but designing your own? Gotta try it. I mentioned night flight rockets, illuminated rockets, LEDs on the outside. You saw those cool photos I took. Check out this one as I actually composited together a group of them. Yeah, that's a big one. I gotta build some night flight rockets. I think that's super duper cool. And last but not least, real obvious one, I want to get certified to launch high power rockets. I haven't even really looked into what this entails. I'm not sure what it would cost. We're gonna find out. Follow along if you think this sounds interesting. I'm sure we'll come up with some more goals, but this is what my plan is for at least the next couple episodes. So thanks for joining. Sorry this episode went so long and it was just a bunch of me yapping on. I promise the next episode we will actually work on some rockets. So thanks a lot. Thanks for joining me. Tune in next time.